This one is for my sober girlies or anybody that is struggling with quitting drinking. I trust that you have landed here for a reason. And whether you identify yourself as an alcoholic, as an addict, or just somebody that can't seem to get a grip with their drinking or whatever substance they have, my intention with this is to paint a picture and a visual in your mind and help you understand how somebody with an addiction's mind works. We all have different addictions. We all have something that we are more connected to that thing and putting our power in it to produce a feeling, yet we are then experiencing negative consequences. But with our own willpower, we are not able to break it or get out of it. So for you, it might not be drinking, it might not be drugs, it might not be heroin, it might be scrolling on your phone. It might be watching porn. It might be something else that you feel like you know is not serving you, but it feels really good in the moment and you want to feel that feeling for a sustained period of time. But no matter what or how much you do it, that feeling does not last. And then you end up experiencing all the repercussions from it. So I'm going to share drinking specifically. There is a story in the Big Book, which is a book that we read in a program of recovery. And this is a popular story that we would share amongst ourselves, but I got the notion today when I was going on a run that I want to just share this so people can start to understand how somebody who is struggling with an addiction, how their mind works and how sneaky it is if you are not on guard. So there is this man who he always goes into this deli, but on this particular day, he wanted to order a glass of milk. And now he's been doing the damn thing. He has been sober. He has not been drinking. He's been working the program, all the things. But this day where his mind took him, it told him to get a glass of milk so that his stomach would be coated and he could then easily be able to have a shot of whiskey. That's how the mind works. That's that voice in your mind that tells you it's okay to hit snooze or I'm tired or I deserve to rest. It's that same sneaky little voice. We fall for it every time because we are so used to it that we can't distinguish that it's the voice that is going to produce consequences later. We're so zoomed into that voice. We're so intimate with it. And so he has this glass of whiskey. And then what happens? Once the floodgates are open, it continues on. And one of the things with any kind of addiction, it's also not the length of time you go without the substance, it's what happens when you do the substance. So it doesn't matter if he went 2 months without it, 2 years without it. It's what happens when he went with it that day that he's not able to stop it or control it, or there's an obsession about it. There's a craving for that initial feeling of that very first one. And so he had another and another, and then led to this and this and this. And then eventually he ended up in the hospital, worse off than he was before going into this deli. This is what our mind does to us. When you have any kind of addiction, it's distorted thinking. It's knowing better, knowing something's harming you, knowing there's negative consequences, knowing you want to quit, knowing you want to stop, but you can't. It is in your mind. And this is why it's hard to measure and it can be hard to empathize with if you don't struggle with addiction because there's no markers. We can't look and see PSA markers or something that indicates you have cancer, you have diabetes, you have lymphoma, you have a broken bone. There's no physical, tangible markers of having an addiction. It's going on in your mind. It's a disease of distorted thinking. But then it's also paired with this physical craving that our mind, it overrides it. And so I want to give you some hope and some relief that it's not that you don't have enough willpower. It's that you might be struggling with an addiction of some kind, and there might be some extra support that you're going to need to get. What people don't realize is whenever you are treating an addiction, you're not just abstaining from that substance or whatever has full power over you. You are getting clean. You are clearing your fears, your resentments, your insecurities, your past, all of the things that have led you to repeating the cycle continuously, even though you know it harms you and it's insanity. But this time you have to look at all of the stuff and the things that you have been avoiding that you can't just brush under the rug anymore because you've been tripping over that rug over and over and over again. Now it's time to actually lift up the rug, sweep the stuff out, maybe Swiffer it a little bit, and then put the rug back down and move forward and walk into your new identity and your new life. It's also connecting with other people who have the same kind of distorted thinking, who are wanting to do better. You're surrounding yourself with people who get it. I shared this in a meeting. I made cinnamon buns and I had the intention to have one. And there were 4. They were big too, big cinnamon buns. I told myself, I'm going to give these to the neighbors. I had one cinnamon bun and it was off to the races for me. Somebody asked me, what does that mean? That means I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop once I started. I had all 4 cinnamon buns. And even as I was eating the cinnamon buns, I was like, I can't stop. I can't stop. I can't stop. Can you identify with that? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Might be watching the wrong video if you can't. But you can help a loved one who does struggle with this. I was thinking how distorted my mind is, that my mind will not allow me to stop what I'm physically doing. I know that this isn't going to get me the results that I want. I know that this is not in alignment with the diet or my health or my body or the way I want to feel. I logically know that all the live long day, but I could not physically stop. And it's once it starts, you can't stop. It's like trying to stop a brick from falling down the ocean once it's already been dropped off the boat. How heavy, how hard is that? You got to then go pick it up before it even drops into the ocean, you don't do it. And that's ultimately with any addiction, what you want to get to is before you even get into the cinnamon buns, before you even get into whatever the addictive thing is that has a hold and has a power over you. But the way that you're going to do that is through work. I don't want to push a recovery program on anybody because that might not be everybody's answers. But something where you are actually going deeper than just abstaining from it. Having community, having support, going through your fears, your insecurities, all of the other things that I mentioned, making amends with people you harmed from your disease, from your distorted thinking. You made decisions out of fear, out of scarcity, out of survival. They weren't you. And so you get to go clean that up, and you get to be brave, and you get to be courageous so that you are not living your life with skeletons in the back of your closet. That's what living a sober life is, or a life free of the certain addiction that has a power or a hold over you. It's that you get to walk free in joy and peace and clarity the way that God designed you to be your dominant state, your dominant vibration, your dominant frequency. So often people are just sourcing that though from the alcohol, from the drug, from the relationship. And so it's not authentic, and then it doesn't last, and then it's fading, and then there's consequences because they were not sourcing it from within themselves. The reasons why people don't organically source these feelings is because they have some kind of lingering guilt or shame or fear or insecurity in their closet that they haven't cleaned up. So they can go do the substance, feel those feelings, feel amazing, and then they don't even remember them, or they blow their life up. I promise you, you are meant to be free. You are meant to walk around feeling good, being happy, being in love. Maybe not every single waking moment, but as your dominant state. God has already forgiven you. God does not forsake you. You could call on God right now and have the same mercy and love that you did when you were doing all those bad things that you thought. There's no prerequisite. There's no timeouts. You can call on the infinite love at any time. It's our own stuff that gets in the way of us thinking that we are worthy of receiving that love and having that everlasting peace and joy and bliss, because we haven't cleaned up our stuff. So I promise, when you start to do the work and follow the necessary guidance and action steps that you personally have to feel free from this addiction, you will live a life where you get to feel peace and you get to feel joy. And you will not have these lingering, unworthy kind of feelings of who am I to be happy? Who am I to have this kind of relationship? Who am I to have this body? Who am I to have these kind of friends? That will start to dissolve and melt away because you cleaned up your stuff. You did the work. You made things right or did your best attempt to make things right with people you harmed or have an ill relationship with so that you don't have these lingering feelings of guilt when things do go well and when you are happy. And that is the ultimate way that we get to live. And it feels so, so, so good. So I invite you to pray over this, what your next steps are, what your guidance is. You most likely already know your next steps and your guidance, but now I would pray then for the courage to follow through and trust it. A lot of times we don't like the guidance. We don't want to make that scary phone call. We don't want to walk into that room. We don't want to do what we need to do. We don't want to be humble. We don't want to accept humility. We want to keep doing things our way and just think with time it will get better. Well, I promise you, I've worked with some clients who are in their 50s and their 60s still dealing with the same patterns when they come to me because they thought time was just going to heal it and that it was just going to get better on its own. I promise you, it's not going to until you look at what you need to and you actually clean it up and you actually do the work. And it's the greatest gift because you truly get to live so free. So I'm so happy that you made your way here. You got to listen and receive this message. I trust that you will get out of it exactly what it is that you need to get out of it, whether you know it or not. I pray that I planted some seeds and I pray that you have the courage and the faith and the trust and the hope to go take those actions and live the way that God designed you to.